Hey everybody, How To Tech bringing you another repair video here. We're going to go ahead and fix the Samsung Galaxy Tab 3 7.0. To do that, we're going to use a small Phillips head screwdriver, a nylon spudger, and some guitar picks. We're going to be doing a glass only replacement on this, and we'll use a few more tools a little bit later in the video, and I'll show you when we get to the disassembly portion of the screen. We're going to go ahead and pop out our little SIM card and micro SD card slots here. You want to make sure you remove any cards that you might have in it. This one's being a little bit tricky. I have to use a tool to get it open there. So I thought it's an easy way to start to remove the plastic back. It actually just snaps on, but it's got a little bit of glue underneath it, it turns out. So we're going to use this guitar pick to work our way around, and possibly the nylon spudger, depending on how tricky it can be. Now you don't want to be too forceful with this. There's little pins that stick in around the back, and then little clips that clip onto the frame itself. You can see one right there. They're snapping off one by one, and then right behind that there's another layer of pins that fit and kind of hold the plastic in place. You don't want to damage those too much, so be a little bit gentle as you're removing this. But like I was saying, there's a thin layer of glue that's holding this down as well, so you can't just pop the back off like you would on an S4 or other type of removable back tablets or phones. So just keep working our way around here. And normally when you get to a certain point, you can just go ahead and pull it off. But like again I was saying, since it's glued on, it'll be a little bit tricky. We're just going to go ahead and pull it all the way off. You might see some little bits of plastic here. Don't be too concerned. As long as you didn't break any of the full snaps off. In the reassembly, the suggestion is to maybe use just a little tiny bit of glue here. A little tiny snaps I'm talking about is pointed out on the back of the cover there. The next thing we're going to do is actually remove our battery. Let's pull off a little piece of tape covering the battery connector. The battery connector just pulls straight up and out. So just going to use our nylon spudger here to get underneath the connector and let's pull it up. Battery's disconnected. We're going to undo the 4 screws that are holding the battery into the back of the device. These are just small Phillips screws. Go ahead and just pull these out and set them aside. Battery will just go ahead and pull out for us. There's a tiny bit of adhesive on one side, it seems like, but nothing that would be too forceful. You want to be careful because right behind that is the actual LCD display, so you don't want to damage that when you're trying to remove the battery. The next step in the disassembly is to remove the mid-frame off of the device itself. So we're going to put it in between the glass and the silver frame and work our pry tool around. This clips in kind of like the back cover, but these are a lot more solid clips that fit into the device. So we're just going to use our guitar pick here and see if we can't get these to snap off for us. Just pulling it down. See, we're starting to get a little bit of separation here. And again, we don't want to be too forceful to damage anything. These clips can be a little bit tricky, but just be careful around the power button, volume button area as well. You don't want to damage those as you start to remove them off the device. Start to make a little bit of progress here. Sometimes the corners can be a little bit tricky. And see, we're starting to get that separation. Start in the dead center up here at the top and see if that helps us get around this corner here. There we go. Start working our way across the bottom here again. Being careful of the charge port. Perfect. The frame's starting to come apart for us. Alright. This doesn't want to pull off, so we'll use our guitar pick at the top side here as well, apparently. Has some solid snaps into it. There we go. Now it's going to reveal the logic board for us and all of the internal components, like your rear-facing, front-facing camera, and all the ribbon connectors that attach to the logic board itself. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start prying these up, just being nice and gentle as we pull them off the screen. All the ribbon cable connectors need to come off so we can remove the logic board out of this device. Now, since if you are doing just a glass only, you technically don't have to remove all of the components off of it. You can just do the glass cable connector, which is the top longer one right above the battery. I like to remove it just so we don't damage it. We'll actually be doing a full disassembly on this, so we can take out the power button, volume button as well, and we'll take a look and see what it takes to replace that. So now it looks like we have all of our ribbon cables disconnected. We're going to undo the screws that are holding the logic board into the middle portion of the device here. So there's one right above the battery and one in the upper right hand corner of the tablet. Kind of right in the middle towards the side. We have a few down here that are actually holding the USB port portion in. Taking out the two that are holding just right on the metal portion of the USB portion. And then one more just to the left. There was one on also to the right of the USB port as well. Alright, let's just take a look and see if this is going to pop out for us. Looks like it's just going to go ahead and remove. Let's go ahead and slide it out, just making sure it's free and clear of all the ribbon cables. Set that aside. Let's go ahead and start removing the internal components here. First thing we're going to do is remove this little extension from the LCD to the motherboard. I'm going to go ahead and pull out the rear facing camera. Just goes and pulls right off. You can see we have an additional few screws here for the 3.5mm headphone jack. There's two of them. We're just going to go ahead and unscrew both of those two and remove that from the device as well. We have a cable piece here. This actually looks like it's sheathed under a longer piece of plastic. So I'm going to go ahead and see if we can't find a pry point for this. Oh, right there to the right. That'll give us access to the front-facing camera sensor portion of the device. Once that's removed, we can just go ahead and pull those both out. We have a few more things left on here. With these two connectors down here. Looks like one is a speaker. We can't pry this up. It's put in by a little plastic housing. See if we can't pry underneath it and get it to pop up for us. We want to be careful of the connector on this. It's got a little ribbon cable connector, so we don't want to pop it out too roughly that might damage that. There's a little pullback connector here that's actually holding this in. So we're just going to try to pry it back a little bit as we pull this out, without actually breaking off the piece holding it in. It's really stuck in there. Perfect. Now we've got it to get removed. Just being careful of this connection here. It doesn't want to pry up, so we're going to have to use something to get underneath it. If you're going to use a tool like this, make sure it's not sharp. This has been dulled on the end, so it won't actually pierce the cable itself if I put too much force into it. Just gently try to pry this up. We're going to do the same thing for the speaker portion on the opposite side of the phone here. There's a little bit of adhesive holding it down. There's a screw that's holding this in on the left hand side of it, so we're going to undo that and set that aside as well. This one just pulls up for us. There's no clip holding it down. So again, just being careful to pry this out nice and gently. Alright, so we're making great progress. We're almost done with the entire disassembly here of the internal components. The next step is to go ahead and take a look at the power button, volume button area. So I'm just going to try to pry this cable back a little bit to give us a little bit more room to work with. Now these buttons are actually kind of set inside of a little holder, so you need something pretty thin to push behind them to unadhere them from the frame here. You can use something like this dental pick or something thin like a isoscemal tool blade. I wouldn't use anything too thick. We don't want to damage the cable itself. So again, just trying to work our way down the side and get this cable to pull up out of its housing portion so we can get a little more play into the button portion themselves. So let's remove that sensor, and then we'll go ahead and work on the volume area here. Getting right behind it, just to loosen the adhesive a little bit. A little more work into the volume button. Perfect. So you can see this is one single cable. It's attaching all of that. Excellent. So now that we have all the internal components out, we're going to go ahead and work on the screen next. Now for the screen itself, we're going to use a couple playing cards and guitar picks to actually get this screen started and pulled up. And to do that, we'll need to loosen the adhesive using a heat gun. This is a hot air rework station. You can find them anywhere on Amazon or eBay. About $100. You can also just use a heat gun. I have heard of people using a hair dryer as well. It just takes a little more time to get it nice and warm. So we're just going to use this hot air rework station and work our way around the glass portion of this device to loosen it up. You don't want to sit your heat gun in one place for too long. You can actually damage the display on this. Get it nice and warm to the touch. Now if you do want to use an infrared thermometer, you can do that as well. You don't want the display to reach over about 180 degrees Fahrenheit. You could get a little burn in if it goes much higher than that. So just be mindful of that. We're just going to take our playing card and see if we can't stick it in on this device here. The adhesive that they've used on this tablet is pretty rubberized, so it can be hard to get started. I'm just going to use a kind of a cutting motion with the card here. See if we can't get this to work in for us. There we go. And we can see it through the device. We made a full cut all the way through the adhesive itself. It's definitely getting a little bit more sticky. Looks like we may make it up the side here before we apply more heat to it. Oh, it's getting kind of stuck there. I guess we'll be applying heat now. Let's work our way down with the area. We're going to use a little bit smaller area now that we know the adhesive is really rubberized. You lose a lot of heat if you try to heat up the entire portion of the device you're working on. So we're just going to give it, basically put the heat on in sections. Try a guitar pick here, see if that works any better for us. And these are a little bit more rigid, but the problem is that when you hit a crack, sometimes it can be harder to start them. Looks like a playing card may be the better friend in this scenario here. It's really stuck on here. Put another guitar pick in here. Make sure the glass doesn't readhere itself. Go ahead and apply more heat. And again, it's in the section that we're going to work on. Try again up this side here. A lot of cracks on this side, so we'll use a playing card to loosen it up a little bit more. See, it looks like it's working a little bit easier with the card than the guitar pick. Once we get to a point where we make good progress, we'll put the pick underneath it to make sure it doesn't readhere itself back onto the display. Now we can apply more heat again across the top here. Now if you're looking to just replace your screen and save the display or the glass itself, be careful of this cable here at the top. That is your touch cable or your digitizer cable. Nice and warm. Let's go ahead and try this card again. Alright, so now the top's completely done, and the side. Go ahead and pull it back a little bit, get us a little bit more positive force here. Let's work our way down this opposite side now. The only thing left now is the bottom of the device. What we're going to do next is just heat this portion up. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and use a new card here that this one's all ripped up. Slide it back a little bit. Now when you get to the home button down here at the bottom, you want to be careful not to go underneath it, or you can damage the ribbon cable a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and pull it up and try to go over the home button itself. And go ahead and pull the glass off. And be very careful not to put a lot of fingerprints onto the screen. That's just a lot more cleaning work you have to do if you touch it. So be gentle with it. You can see how thick this adhesive is. We need to go ahead and remove all of this adhesive off of the screen. Anything that's residual here that would cause the new tape or the new adhesive on the screen itself to pull up. So just take your time and try to pull and pry all of this off. If you need to use a little bit of alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, to clean up the adhesive if you have it in layers, I usually use that with a razor blade on these magnesium frames. Perfect, that's the disassembly of the Galaxy Tab 3 7. If you found the video helpful, hit the like button. If you have any questions about this replacement, go ahead and throw them down in the comments. And if you want to see future repair videos, go ahead and hit the subscribe button as well. If you're looking to replace just the display itself, it basically just pops right out. Just go ahead and push on the back a little bit. Just be gentle as you remove it. And also, if you want to remove your home button, you do have to remove the home button ribbon cable. It's right here at the bottom, wraps around right here to the front. You don't have to remove the display to do that. You can basically just put it through the little hole. And that's it. That's the disassembly. Thanks for watching. Hope to catch you on the next one.